Hi, this is Chris German from the Apartment Dealer Show, and I have a question for you. What if we saw an uptick in property values for just the next 60 days? There's plenty of data that states that might just be the case. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Chris German, and welcome back to the Apartment Dealer Show. As of the recording of this video, we have just more than 2 months left before a very important timeline comes to an end. That timeline is the extension that the government offered at the beginning of this year for 1031 exchanges. Now, in case you're unaware, for those individuals who owned and lived in certain areas within here, Southern California, the government gave an extension on the 1031 exchange timeframe. Normally, when in a 1031 exchange, from the day you close escrow on the property you're selling, you have 45 days from that date to what they call identify or find the next property or properties that you look to purchase. With this extension, the government said, we're going to give you all the way until October 15th in order to find your new properties. So you can imagine, for those individuals that sold their property in March, they've had since March to find their new property. And they still have additional time up until October. That was a godsend. It's a once in a life, or has been a once in a life opportunity, because typically for investors, the number one concern they have when it comes to a 1031 exchange is the question, what if I can't find something to buy? Now, we have other recordings that speak to this, but at least for ourselves and our clients, that's not the case, have not had that happen. But I could see a situation where it could happen depending on the approach of the 1031 exchange and the individuals that you have walking you through that process. But to today's point, October 15th was that extension date. And the government had said you have up until that date to find the new properties that you're going to buy. And then from there, depending on when you closed the property you sold, when you closed escrow, you may have to close that property, the new property you look to buy, also by October 15th, or depending on when that date of sale was, shortly thereafter. Okay, so what do I mean? Let's say you sold the property in February. You would have to both find and close the new property, your exchange property, by October 15th. But let's say you sold your property in July. Well, you would have to find the new property by October 15th. That's still an extension because it's beyond the original 45 days, but you have 180 days from the day you sell the original property to close escrow on the new property. So for an individual who sold their property in July, yes, they have to find the property or properties they look to purchase by October 15th, but they still have additional time to close escrow. So right now we're in the midst of preparing for our next apartment owners educational luncheon. And as I do my homework and I begin to pull together the data that I'll be presenting at the event, I got to thinking, well, what's happened to the individuals that maybe have overstayed their welcome, if you will? They sold their property, they fall within that time frame of having to find and close the new property by October 15th. How many individuals are out there that have not found the property as of yet, and the clock's ticking? They have, say, just over 60 days to find and close the new property. Now, I thought, well, maybe it's a lot, maybe it's not very many because people have been prudent, but I know investors, and they don't always utilize the time frames wisely. They're not always proactive, I should say. So I called Greg Burns from IPX, who you've seen in our show. IPX is the nation's largest 1031 exchange accommodator. Why is that an important phone call? Because the accommodator is the company that holds the money while an individual is in a 1031 exchange. So I thought, well, let's call Mr. Burns. Let's see how much money they're holding of individuals that are in 1031 exchanges that are beyond the original 45 days. So we know that they're relying on this October 15th date. How many of them exist? And then of that amount of money, how much of it has to close? Also close escrow, not just find a new property, but close escrow by October 15th. Was it out of the norm? So Greg and I speak, and here's the real data. Right now, on hand with IPX is about $700 million that's on extension. $700 million that has to find the new property by October 15th. How much of that money has to also close by October 15th? $400 million. Now, Mr. Burns shared with me that if you go based upon how much of the market share IPX has historically versus the other 1031 exchange companies that are out there, what could that potentially mean in total dollars? His estimate, $3 billion. $3 billion that is on extension, and these individuals must at least find their replacement property by October 15th, if not close escrow also on their new purchase. So what does this amount to? Well, if this holds true, that means there's going to be more money chasing deals than there are deals to purchase. That's the bottom line. So what will that do to values? Well, it's supply and demand. I want you to think of this. Have you ever had the situation where you waited too long to shop for Christmas gifts, and there you are out just a few days before Christmas in the retail stores with the masses of people, and everything's been picked over? Some things that you normally wouldn't buy actually start looking kind of interesting for your loved ones because you have no other choice. Well, I think the same applies here. For those investors that normally wouldn't pay X price, they had certain expectations of a cap rate, certain expectations of a price per unit and a price per square foot. That goes out the door when you got Uncle Sam breathing down your neck saying, hey, you must close or you're going to pay capital gains. Now, do I know for sure? No. What I do know for sure is how much money IPX has on hand, how much of that is on extension, and that is well outside the norm, according to Greg Burns. And there's not a lot of inventory in the marketplace. If you've followed my market update videos, you know that transactions are at 50% of what they were last year. There's not a lot of open inventory. So that should then drive up prices of those properties that are on the market. So why might that be important to you? Well, if you've had thoughts of selling, there might be a 60-day window here to get overpaid. Case in point, my partner Deepan Shah and I, who you've seen on my show, you've seen him at our events. He's another agent that works alongside me, buying and selling, helping individuals buy and sell multifamily properties. He and I are in the process of flipping a multifamily property. We should, from the recording of this video, we should close escrow in 2 days if all goes well. And if we close escrow at the current contract price, it will be the highest price per unit ever in that city's history for a normal apartment building built prior to 1980. And when I say normal, most of which you're used to seeing, but most of which probably which you own, this general stock of multifamily properties that are, pre-1980 construction, because once you get to 1980, a lot of those buildings begin to look like condos and townhomes and what have you. So that's a different stock, but there's only a handful of those that have even sold at a higher price per unit than this particular building we're selling. I don't want to get too much into the details. I don't want to jinx myself here. And it's going to be our next video when we give you the final numbers on that flip and how did it work out for us financially. But highest price per unit. Guess who my buyer is? My buyer, who I'm not representing, they're represented by another agent because my property is on the open market listed, they're in a 1031 exchange. That buyer is in a 1031 exchange. Could be coincidence. My guess would be that this investor has reviewed the sales comps. There's no sales comps to support the price per se. And so they told themselves, though, given the quality of the asset, and if you watch my rehab videos, you know that the quality is a step ahead, a step above the norm. They're able to justify to themselves paying this price. Number one, it's a nice product. Number two, if you don't buy it, you get to buy some other just average building, or buy nothing and give Uncle Sam 30, 40, maybe 50% of your net from your sale, depending on, what your taxable gain is. So for those of you that have had some thoughts in the past about selling, there may be a 60-day window. Now that 60 days may expand somewhat because, as I mentioned, for those individuals who say sold properties in June or July or even August and September, they have to find their new property within 45 days or longer, depending on where that falls from the October 15th date, and they have 180 days to close. So there are some individuals, in other words, that are on extension, they closed escrow in June, they're on extension to find the new property by October 15th, and then they have up until December to close that property. But nonetheless, they have to find it by October 15th. So that window, that identification window is closing. It's narrowing. And in a market, if we're talking about multifamily properties, here in the corridors that we work, 210 corridor, 605 corridor, 710 corridor, Inland Empire East and West, along the 91, these corridors, if they had hopes of purchasing something in these geographic locations, there is not much to purchase. Keep it in mind. Now, seller beware. If you're at home enjoying a meal with your loved ones, the phone rings, and on the other end of that phone is a real estate broker stating that they have a buyer who's in a 1031 exchange, who's willing to buy your property as is. Tenants, no tenants, non-paying tenants, paying tenants, maybe cash. Seller beware. Oftentimes this tactic, even outside of what we're talking about on this 1031 exchange extension, it's a tactic of many to utilize that as a sales technique to get you into conversation, when in fact they do not have a buyer. I've even seen where they have a fictitious offer, believe it or not, to continue the conversation with you. And if you don't know what to look for and you don't know what questions to answer, they might be looking to just tie you up for a period of time to then move on and find a real buyer, in the hopes of finding a real buyer, and just have you locked up for a period of time while they try to do so. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, do some agents really do that? Unfortunately, there are many agents who have done that, and I've actually been called in and had to step in sometimes with investors who knew of me or maybe had utilized my services in the past, and somebody brought them an offer that was too good to be true, and it was, and then they brought us in to be their counsel alongside them to help them work out the scenario. So that's probably the worst case scenario. What's a more probable scenario? More probable scenario is an agent is looking to utilize this conversation about having a 1031 exchange buyer to somehow use it as a backdoor to eventually get you to list your property when in fact they don't have a buyer. So seller beware. You have to know what questions to ask. And if presented a purchase agreement, you have to know what to look for. And does that purchase agreement protect you just as much as it protects the buyer? And you have to question that when you have an agent who first and foremost started out representing the buyer before they placed that phone call to you. Seller beware. Point number 2, if you receive an offer and let's say it's a legitimate offer from an individual who's in a 1031 exchange and they can provide you proof of funds and so forth. The question is that the highest price your property would bear? How do you know the highest price that your property would bear? The only way to know if you're selling your property at maximum price is to have that property not only on the open market, but to have it properly marketed. When we represent landlords in the sale of their properties, we have a multifaceted approach to market these properties for sale. The days are long gone when you can just put the property on the multiple listing or say LoopNet and sit back and watch the offers come in. Those days are long gone. The market is in a major shift. The approach to market a property has to be multifaceted. This video is not to dive into that. You can always call me directly and see what that consists of. I'm here to raise the question of how do you know that you're getting maximum price for your property if it's not properly being marketed? Many of you have gone a very long time never considering a sale. And I've seen it happen where an agent brings you a legitimate offer. What to you seems a high price because of the market. Maybe you've been comparing that against postcards you're receiving in the mail, emails you're getting from agents when it says just sold or what have you. And you're comparing the two and say, hey, this offer seems like it's a pretty good price. How do you know? And aside of how do you know, wouldn't you want to ensure that when you sell, essentially, you've got the buyer by his ankles and you're shaking out every dollar? That's what we're doing with this property that I'm currently selling, hence the highest price that I'll ever sell in that particular city, because we ensured that we got maximum price by what? By marketing our own property for sale. We could have marketed that property internally. I could have saved myself commission because we're paying the buyer's agent a commission. We could have just marketed in-house. Our listings go to about 10,000 multifamily investors, and assumably we would have found a buyer of our own and saved ourselves the commission. But then I wouldn't know if I was obtaining the highest price the market would bear. Third, I would say if presented a contract, you have to know what to look for, that you won't get, this will not drag on forever with one extension request after another, one excuse after another, the buyer having little skin in the game in terms of deposit, time frames that are wide open in terms of the buyer. So you have to know what to look for there. And then lastly, I would say, do you know what to do with the money? If you've been given a high price, so an aggressive price for your property, do you know what you would do next with those proceeds? Is it a 1031 exchange? If it's a 1031 exchange, what type of asset class will you buy? Have you explored different ways to exit without, or maybe not without, but mitigating your capital gains tax? There's different exit strategies. It's not just 1031 exchange or cash out and pay taxes. Those are not your only options. What would be your exit strategy? And are you working with an individual that can offer multiple exit strategies that can help you accomplish whatever it is that you're looking to do long term? Are you looking to still have monthly income in place? Are you looking simply to alleviate yourself of the management? Are you looking to take advantage of the high price, but then on the other side of that exchange, be able to purchase something that's going to be more lucrative than your current investment? Well, how do you know? When you're comparing apples to apples, when you put the numbers and financials in black and white, are you confident? Has the right underwriting and analysis been completed to ensure that the new property is going to outperform your current asset? All that takes an analysis. So we will see together. My prediction is over the course of the next 60 days, we're going to see some properties sell at prices we normally wouldn't see as investors chase what little deals they are to complete their 1031 exchanges. I also just mentioned that our educational luncheon is coming up, our apartment owners educational luncheon. This is our flagship event. We will have 9 speakers in attendance, informing you what all has changed when it comes to apartment ownership since COVID, So many things have changed, and it only continues to get more confusing. It only continues to get more difficult as a landlord here, specifically in Southern California. We're bringing in the brightest minds in the real estate industry to inform you, the landlords, what has changed when it comes to the legal aspects, financial aspects, investment strategy, and otherwise, so that you can be prepared for the days ahead. Stay tuned. That announcement will be coming out shortly. Registration is not yet open, but I can promise you this. When we do open registration, these seats will be gone like that. And we only open a handful of seats to begin with because we like to keep the event a little bit more private, if you will, so that you have a good experience as the attendee. I hope you found today's video informative. I hope it was thought-provoking. And I'd be curious, what are your thoughts? Do you think my prediction is correct, that over the course of the next 60 days, as individuals that are in 1031 exchanges chase what little deals there are, we're going to see an uptick in values? Share your comments below. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, turn on the alerts, and share this video with other landlords that you know so that they can receive this educational content as things get more and more difficult as a landlord. Education is key. The information that you're making decisions upon is extremely important. And you want to make sure that those individuals, you know, that are investors, have the right resources, network of professionals, and information of which they're using as a lens to then see the real estate market and what their next steps will be in the building of their financial legacy. Chris German from the Apartment Dealer wishing you positive cash flow, tenants who behave, and much protection from Uncle Sam. Till next time.